Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, this week, it is a pre-recorded session, so if you do have any questions, if you're watching on Zoom, you can reply to the confirmation email you got. That'll go to my email box, and then I'll respond to those when I get back from traveling. If you're watching this on YouTube, just leave a comment under the video. Same thing. I'll get to those when I get back. And then on Facebook, you can just leave a comment underneath as well, and then I will get to those at the end of the session as well. My name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's national diagnostic technical trainers. Been in the training department the last 7 years, trying to help technicians and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment that they have. Before that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep with Snap-on. I had 30 different Snap-on franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs there. Before that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So I was a dealership technician at a Subaru dealership. And over time, I just kind of became the default diagnostic guy there. So I ended up with all the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would seem to come up on these vehicles. Those all ended up in my bay. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all these strange problems that came into my bay. And before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been about 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic today is code-based diagnostic workflow part 2. So if you were with us last week, we talked about using a good standardized diagnostic workflow. So to recap what we were talking about, you would intake the customer. You want to make sure you do a pre-scan on every vehicle, right? You want to make sure that you're scanning all modules for codes, because some modules can throw a code and not turn on a light. So we want to make sure that we are checking those. We also talked about how it'll upload free to the Snap-on cloud, and we can share that as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Then after that, once we've gotten the pre-scan and shared the results with the customer and gotten approval from the customer, then we would go through our diagnosis phase, right? So we're going to go through and determine the cause, and that in and of itself is a whole other workflow in there. Then after that, we'll repair whatever we come to as a conclusion. We'll go in and fix the problem. Then once the problem is fixed, we'll go in and double check, make sure, are there any resets, relearns, recalibrations that need to be done on the system? And it's not just for things you might think of, say, ADAS, right? ADAS, just about everything needs some sort of a reset or relearn or calibration. How about an oxygen sensor on a GM? You have to reset the heater circuit. How about, any host of other things? If you're here right at the very beginning, we looked at that Evap monitor test, right, to make sure that Evap monitor runs. So any of those, you might need to do a recalibration, a reset, a relearn, and you have to look up and find out where that happens to be, right? Then how about a post scan after that? So after we're done with recalibration, we'll want to clear the codes, take it on a nice road test, make sure we set the monitors, and then we'll do that post scan to verify that there are no codes left over in the vehicle and that the vehicle's in better shape than it was when it came in, right? So that's our base workflow. And then last week, we focused on the diagnosis portion, right? So we wanted to gather our information once we find a code, determine an action plan. So through our TSBs, we looked at TSBs. That actually fixed the PO300 code we had, because we had 2 codes in this vehicle, right? So the TSB addressed one of the problems, a missing clip on a plug wire. And then we need OEM info, wiring diagrams, and torque specifications, and repair info, and diagnostic flow charts from them. Real world repair info, looking at our SureTrack graph based on over 1.3 billion repair orders. Checking data stream, what is the computer telling us it sees based on condition? Functional tests, turning things on and off. In this case, what we're working on this week, or from last week, is we had a PO446, a vent valve code, do a functional test on that vent valve, and it did not turn on or off. We weren't able to cycle it using the computer. Then with component testing, by actually testing the voltage at the component while still cycling it on and off, we were able to verify that yes, indeed, that solenoid had an internal issue. It wasn't letting voltage go through the solenoid to get to the computer. So by doing that, we verified the failure. So now we'll get to our repair function, which is where we're going to talk about and focus this week. So we need to make sure we order the correct part. And that sometimes can be a challenge too, because we know over the telephone, sometimes if you call in, it might be difficult to order the correct part. So we want to maybe minimize those errors. And then we'll replace it per OEM instructions. And then we need to verify that repair after the fact. And we don't just throw the part in and send the car down the road, right? We want to make sure by doing a component test and a functional test, we want to make sure that we can turn it on and off and the component functions as expected. All right, so that is where we will bring us to after repair after that. So once we have verified that it is complete and the new part fixed the problem, then we'll clear all the codes. We need to find and perform any resets, relearns, or calibrations for the problem. Then we'll take a road test to set the monitors, and then we'll do a post scan, which we can also share with our customers. And we'll also attach that post scan link to our repair order as well before we finalize it. So with that, let's pick up where we left off. So we left off with our scan tool hooked up, and we had verified that the part, the component, had failed, right? The vent solenoid valve had failed. So now I need to look up a part. So I'll pull up my shop manager. I have my repair order down here for this vehicle. You can see it's diagnosed surging, chugging. Pre-scan link is right there. And then now let's order a part. So we look down the bottom here. I have links to miscellaneous part catalogs. So we have the best parts catalog integration in the industry, by the way. But you can click on it and it'll bring you to the online ordering for that particular brand of parts house. So here is, let's verify our car here. This opens up on another screen for me, so I have to slide them over. Okay, so here I am in CarQuest. I got a CarQuest down the street, so I just plugged in there. And I need to look up this part. So that is under, well, let's see. Did I click too far? No, I did not click too far. That is under fuel and emissions. There it is. And then under fuel emissions, Evap control components. Go in there. And then we see our list for the vapor canister at the top, the vent solenoid, the purge valve, and then the vent valve itself down there. So if we look vapor canister vent solenoid, we got this one from BWD. If I click on that, it gives me a picture. So there's my picture right there. And I can see, looks like there's the solenoid, and then it comes with the filter. So this big, long flex hose, I guess you could call it. It's got the filter on the end. And then we have a hard nylon line that goes over, must be to the canister, right? So that's what that assembly looks like. If we look at Dorman's, should look very similar. So yeah, it looks very similar, just doesn't have that loop-de-loop in there, right? But for all intents and purposes, I'd say that'd be the same. So there's my filter, and there's my hard line there. And then we could also look at just the solenoid itself. So that's down here. And we can see it's a mounting bolt. And then we have, that's probably where the vent filter goes, and that's probably where the hard line goes, or maybe vice versa. And then the connector is down here as well. So if we needed just the solenoid and we didn't want to worry about replacing the lines as well, which I think if you've dealt with any of those quick connect fittings and those lines there, you realize that they tend to break after a while, especially if they've been on the vehicle for a bit. So I am going to order this one right here. So look at this Dorman part right there. I want one of them. I will check it off, and then I will transfer it over to my repair order. All right, so we got that. All right, so there we go. So there is our vapor canister solenoid, quantity of 1, and then sale price versus the list price there. It does a markup for me, and now I'm ready. So we can order it and order the parts in. You can do that electronically as well through the parts ordering window, which is over there again. There we go. So I can order all those. Hit order parts, and oh, I gotta do a price check first. There we go. Okay, well, it's because I'm in demo mode then. All right, cool. So we can order the parts right from there, and then the parts will come in, all right, through my whatever parts house I have. So let's say the parts came in, and then I need to know the repair procedure, all right? So I can go in and look up my repair procedure. So I can go into my repair information either through my scan tool if I have that option, or through the web browser, which we could do as well. I'm going to pull up my vehicle information. All right, so it's an LTZ. Use this vehicle. And then we'll look up our Evap vent solenoid. All right, vent solenoid replace over there. And then we have our, let's see, our OEM testing procedures. We can go in there. It's going to walk us through how we would test it, and it's going to walk us through how we would replace it. It's just one bolt. It's in the back of the vehicle. All right, so we have that information there. How about labor? How long is this going to take me? You can do a labor time as well, either through here or through our manager system. So you can go in, look for labor. Looks like it's 8/10. All right, so it's not going to take all that long. Looks like it's 8/10. Okay, cool. So I have all that information. Now I would go and replace it. Take my 8/10, replace it, come back here to my scanner. So once that's done, and I would need to verify that problem, right? And now I don't have codes, right? Because we clear the codes, so we wouldn't have any codes. But I want to verify that that new part fixed the problem. So I'll go back into my scanner where I was, go into engine, and that is a functional test. You can go in, and that is called an output control. And if I look, there's my evap vent solenoid there. Notice how many different functional tests there are on this vehicle. And if you were with us last week and you remember, that brought it down to 4 tests out of this whole list. It brought it down to just those 4. So we didn't have to search through and find this vent solenoid valve. All right, there we go. Go into my vent solenoid valve. Perform my functional test. I can set it to venting and not venting. And once again, since we're wirelessly connected, we can just go underneath the back of the vehicle, put our hand on it, go to venting, go to not venting, make sure whether or not it's clicking. And in this case, let's say, for the sake of argument, that it is clicking. But of course, we also want to verify the voltages are correct, because we can have problems with parts brand new out of the box, right? Pretty sure you may have gotten a brand new part in a box that didn't work at one point in your life, right? So we're going to go into our guided component test. Out of the 5 million guided component tests, we have our vent solenoid test for this particular vehicle, and we can do a DC voltage test. So yellow to vent control, black to known good ground. We should see 12 volts on both sides when it's de-energized. And then when we energize it, we should see 1/10 of a volt or less on the control side. So let's say we hit view meter. Once again, automatically sets the voltage range where it needs to be, automatically sets the time base where it needs to be, and I am back probed at the vent solenoid, which is this one right here, and on pin A, so I'm getting ignition voltage, right? So 12 volts in my ignition. And then let's undo it, plug it in on the other side. There it is. So on both sides, when it's open, we have 12 volts. And if you remember last time, I did not have 12 volts coming out the back side of the solenoid. Right, so we'll just go in and we can check back and forth and make sure that it has voltage on both sides. Now we also want to make sure it's being controlled properly, and we want to make sure the voltage is correct when it goes to ground, when the computer grounds it. So I want to be able to do this at the same time while I do my functional test. So once again, we'll pop my meter out. We'll go back over to my scanner where my functional test is. Pull that up, pull up my scope, snap it to the right, snap it to the left. And then if we go not venting, it should be, this is on the control side. And then if we set it to venting, it should see 1/10 of a volt or less. And we're right down there, right around that 0 volt mark. All right, so that means it's working. Set it to not venting, it goes back up to 12 volts. Set it to venting, it goes back down to 12 volts. All right, so that's the way it should be. So we've just verified that the component's working. Now, why did I just test a brand new part? As I mentioned, have you ever gotten a brand new part in a box that didn't work? I think you can agree that probably has happened at some point in your life. So we want to test it. I have also seen, personally, that on solenoids, switches, motors, if we even have the slightest bit of resistance and it reduces the voltage just enough where it's below the threshold to set a code, you will get a code. Even if it might still technically be working, the voltage output might not be correct. It might have just a little bit extra resistance in there, and it brings it down by 1/10 of a volt, but that 1/10 of a volt's enough to bring it down below the threshold to set a code. So we want to make sure we're not going to set that code again. And so go back into my scanner, exit out of here, go back a few screens. Next thing we want to do is we want to see, are there any resets, relearns that need to be done? So first off, I'm going to clear the codes. We want to do that before my reset or relearn. So I'm going to go and clear all codes, read by code scan here. So it's going to go through, it's doing it in the background right now. There we go. 33 systems, code's cleared in all of them. Hit OK. And then where's the best place to look for any resets or relearns that need to be done? Well, if you have a tool with Intelligent Diagnostics, it's a quick link. Right here is service resets and relearns. If you have a non-intelligent diagnostic tool, you could simply go into Engine and find any applicable resets for this problem. But in this case, it's just a little bit faster to come in here and have them preset by what did I do. All right, this is by job. So we replaced the Evap vent solenoid. So I go in there to replace an Evap vent solenoid. It's going to give us any related repairs, top repairs graph. It's going to give us any related TSBs, bulletins, recalls, or campaigns. Looks like there's no related bulletins for this, and that's fine. If I go to functional resets and calibrations, what it does is it looks inside the computer and finds any applicable reset or relearn. Now, in this case, we got just one because there is only one thing we need to do. But sometimes you could get 4, 5, 6 different tests in here, depending on what we're working on, depending on how it's related. All right, so we can go into Evap service bay test here, and it'll tell us to run it. So use it to run the onboard Evap diagnostic. To ensure accurate test results, refer to vehicle-specific service information for instructions. If Evap monitor flag is complete, clear the codes to reset the monitor. Turn all accessories off and set the parking brake. Fuel level must be between 15 and 85%. All right, so why are we running this test? This is another one of those tests. If you were here at the very beginning, we had that video, right? So another one of these tests that we need to do to avoid spending a ton of time to set this monitor. So I'm going to go back over to my shop key, into my repair information. And I want to look up the Evap service bay test. So I brought my canister over, so I'm going to go service bay test. All right, so here we are right here. Evap service bay test. And it is this one. Okay, so this is how to set all of our monitors. It brings us to an article on how to set all of our monitors. You want to ensure the vehicle meets the conditions for cold start listed above. So up here we have conditions for cold start. So ignition voltage needs to be between 11 and 18 volts. Barometric pressure more than 75 kilopascals. Coolant temperature, intake air temperature, and ambient air temperature need to be between 39 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Difference between intake and engine coolant temperature needs to be less than or equal to 10.8 degrees, and fuel level between 15 and 85%, as we said. To set the Evap monitor, it should say yes, but it's not going to say yes because we just cleared the codes, which means we cleared all the monitors. So if it says no, we need to perform the Evap service bay test if applicable. If it's not available, if we don't have access to this test, which we do, luckily, it may take up to 6 drive cycles with up to 17 hours between drive cycles for the Evap system status indicator to transition to yes. That is a long time. Right? It could take up to 6 drive cycles with 17 hours in between each drive cycle. It's pretty much a week-long process if we need to do this. So we definitely don't want to have to do that. And that's why we want to run that Evap service bay test to be able to force that monitor in the bay without having to drive it and wait for that long. In order to go through all of this, we have to make sure, no loads are on the engine, set the parking brake, put it in park, idle the engine for 2 minutes, then we run the engine for 6.5 minutes at certain conditions, let the engine idle, et cetera, et cetera. It's multiple steps that we would need to go through 6 times in order to set that monitor. So it's a good thing we have this Evap service bay test. Let me go back to scanner. Go to Evap service bay test. Once again, between 15 and 85%, hit continue. Turn the ignition off, wait 10 seconds, and then turn the ignition on. It is important when you're walking through any of these scripted types of tests that we have is follow the instructions. If it says to turn the ignition off, we need to turn the ignition off. It says to pull out the key, pull out the key. There's certain things that need to be done in order to wipe the memory on the computer, certain things like that. So we want to make sure that we're turning the ignition off and waiting the 10 seconds if it says we need to do so. We'll hit continue. Okay, and then it says transmission must be in park or neutral. Apply the parking brake. Start the engine. Raise the RPM and hold between 1800 to 2200 for the duration of the engine running portion of the test. So you'll run that engine around about 2000 RPM, I guess would be a good middle of the road there. And it will go through that portion of the test. And then once it's done there, it will go through the idle portion of the test. And all you need to do on this is just watch up on the top of the screen. It'll give you instructions. Since this is a scripted test, it'll walk you through it. Now I'm in demo mode, so this is as far as I can go. What it's going to do is it's going to say once purge is enabled, so that'll be when I'm sitting in that around about 2000 RPM range. This will switch over and allow us to go to the purge section. It'll just give you instructions on the top of the screen what to do next, what to do next. All right, so we have all the data, so we know any reason it may have aborted. If we have a problem with it, why did the test cancel itself? It gives us that reason there as well. Whether the result is in, whether we have it pass or fail or no result. And then anything that's inhibiting the test, if there's a reason there, that they're all data PIDs coming out of the computer. So having this information on the screen is pretty invaluable when we're trying to do this test. And I know I've spoken to plenty of people out there that sometimes this test isn't the easiest one to do just because of all the different conditions that need to be met. Same thing with throttle reset on a Nissan. I think that one takes a lot of steps and they have to be very specific as well. All right, so we want to make sure that we're just following the instructions on the top of the screen and it'll walk us through the test. So let's say that we're good there. We walked through that test and the test is over and it passed. So now my emissions, my Evap monitor is set. So we're in good shape there. Next thing we want to do is take it on a good drive cycle. Drive it under conditions according to the manufacturer, as it said in that Evap test that we looked at in ShopKey earlier. Then once we've done that, we want to bring the vehicle back and do that final post-scan code scan. So we'll go into code scan, and this time it's a post-scan, so we'll label the report as a post-scan. It will go through, and it will check all 33 modules on that vehicle, and it'll report back whether or not we have code. In this case, all green here. If I go down a little bit further, we'll see that it's all green there on my readiness monitors as well. So according to this, we're good to go. Now it saved it to the tool. So I can come down here in my vehicle record, or if I don't have a Windows-based tool, it's previous vehicles and data. There is my vehicle system report. That would be my post scan. I can go in here and there's my post scan as it says right there. Go through. No systems with codes. Every system has no codes. Right, so that's good there. I could print it out from here if I wish to do so. Or I can go back to my Snap-on Cloud and share it this way, which is what we're going to do. So log in. As we've said before, this is free to anyone. You just need to have register your Snap-on Scan tool with it. It needs to be a current software version on that, on your tool, which is very important. You'll see a little bit more why it's very important in a minute. But you want to make sure you have a current version of software on your tool. Here is my, let's see, 6:22 p.m. There it is. So there is my post scan here that I just did. Notice how it tags it as a post scan here on the bottom of the screen. I can click on it. It'll open up in a new window. There's my post scan there. I could print it from here since it works in any browser, or I can share the link. All right, so if I click on the link here, it gives me three options to share this link. Send via SMS will allow me to send it via text message to a customer. If I have this open on a phone, that becomes active. Send via email will allow me to send it via email on whatever machine I happen to be running, whatever the default email provider I have set up in the tool. And then copy to Clipboard, which will allow it to copy it to the Clipboard, and then I can paste it wherever it needs to go. So we'll copy that to Clipboard because I want to put it back in my repair order. All right, so you can go over here, pull up my repair order. I'm going to put in another note right here, notes, and we'll call that a post scan. There it is. Save it, and we're done. So now I have here is my symptom. Here's my pre-scan. There's my part. There's my post-scan. I can then go through and close this out. And we're good there with our repair order. Now all we have to do is just disconnect from the vehicle. Before we disconnect from the vehicle, we want to make sure down here where it says change vehicle, click on that. So that way it will stop communication with the vehicle. And this really applies to the wireless tools, is it stops communication with the vehicle, and it also resets the wireless module so we don't have any issues connecting it to the next car. So it'll stop scanner communication, hit OK, saves the vehicle record. I have no active vehicle in there, and I can simply disconnect from the vehicle, and I am good to go. So with that, that is our code to completion. That is the second half of our code to completion. So what are we talking about next week? So next week, we'll be starting an all-new series of classes. We have 3 new classes coming up. Next week is going to be on ABS operation and testing. So we'll talk about the different sensors, the different solenoids, things that we need to have those anti-lock brakes work properly, and have some diagnosis tips and tricks, some scanner tips and tricks, etc. So if you want to join me, same time, same place, 6 and 9 Eastern. If you want to go to snapon.com/OT, you can join me on Zoom, save your seat there. Otherwise, the 6 p.m. class goes to the YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you're subscribed. And if not, you can go to youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics and check out the video over there. And then the 9 o'clock Eastern class goes to my Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/SnapOnJason, all one word, no dash in the Snap-on. If you want to go check me out over there and give me a follow, then you'll always be up to date on any of this free training that we're giving to you. If you want to see any of our other prior classes that we've done, anything from ADOS, data bus testing, component testing, basic electronics, forced induction, etc., all available over on the YouTube channel. There's a separate playlist just for live training. And with that, we're up to Q&A. Now, as I said, this is a pre-recorded session this week. So if you do have any questions, if you're watching on Zoom, just reply to the confirmation email. That'll go to my email inbox. If you're watching on YouTube, just leave a comment under the video and we'll help you out when we can. And then same thing with Facebook, leave a comment under the video and I will get to those as we go throughout. Also want to make sure I mention my buddy Al, who also does free diagnostic training. He does tool specific training. So if you want to get a little bit more knowledge as to what your tool can do, how it works, Monday it's on Apollo, Wednesday it's on Zeus, and Thursday it's on Triton. So very thorough class all the way from let's make sure your Wi-Fi set up. Make sure that's all set and going, because a lot of features on the tool actually need Wi-Fi nowadays. And that's through the manufacturer even. All the way through, let's set up your free Snap-on Cloud account so you can upload and share files. And then we'll go through code to completion, fast track intelligent diagnostics. How does it help me as a technician diagnose vehicles faster? And then that's about an hour long for all that. Each night, depending on what tool it is, he'll just do it on the respective tool. Wednesday and Thursday, though, since those tools also have scope and meter functions, take a 5-minute break after that first hour. Then he goes through another hour on the scope and the meter and real world examples of where he would use that and what it would look like, fuel pumps, things of that nature. So same time, same place, Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday, pick your tool, snapon.com/OT. He only goes to Zoom, so you'll need to be, it's more of an in-person type session. Your camera's not on, but he'll be able to answer your questions. You type them in the Q&A. He's definitely able to answer your questions live, and it's kind of designed to have the tool in front of you following along with what he's doing on the screen. So once again, go check him out, snapon.com/OT. It's free. With that, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy week to come join us. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Have a good night.